Morning, friends. We are on Chapter 39, Junkie Kingdom in Dreamland, Portsmouth, Ohio. Finally, inevitably, Dreamland closed. This happened in 1993. Jamie Williams had sold it years before. The new owners couldn't keep up the pool, and the population was no longer there to support it. More people had pools in their backyards. Dreamland stood empty for 2 years. Residents organized to save it, but there were fewer of them now, since Portsmouth had lost its steel mill and shoe factories. The city could have bought it, but dallied. The owners made a deal with a developer who wanted to put it in a shopping center. Dreaming of tax revenue as budgets shrank, the city council let it happen. Before anyone could sue to stall the deal, the developer brought in bulldozers late at night and crippled the pool by knocking out its filtration system. Over 2 months, the bulldozers tore out the lockers and the diving boards, filled in Dreamland, and covered it in blacktop. Longtime Portsmouthians couldn't bear to watch. An O'Reilly Auto Parts and an AT&T cellular store now stand at the edge of a massive asphalt parking lot that was once Dreamland. Tax revenue from Dreamland never much materialized. Instead, the Dreamland debacle fed the idea that City Hall contained a bunch of dullards. As the town's decline intensified, Portsmouth opted for a strong mayor, a form of government usually reserved for large cities. It could save the town the cost of a city manager, but the mayors had no experience in or time for running a town's complicated daily affairs. One mayor was a grocery store clerk. Predictably, basic municipal governance was abandoned. Trash pickup schedules grew undecipherable. Unlit parks became prostitution hives. Police, with few officers, gave up. City politics became a street brawl, and recalls grew common. City council meetings were left to gadflies infected with debilitating negativity. Nothing would work, so why try? For years, the town had a protector in Vern Riff Jr. Riff ran a political machine from his post as the powerful Democratic Speaker of Ohio's House of Representatives. A son of Portsmouth, he was a prolific fundraiser. He funneled tax money into the town and other forgotten parts of Appalachian Ohio. He had Shawnee State University built in Portsmouth. As Portsmouth's benefactor, Riff was a beloved figure. Yet he was part of a larger culture of dependence that Portsmouth had trouble shaking. Everybody was looking for some outside source to come in and save us, said Scott Dutat, a native son and professor of sociology at the university. After Dreamland closed, the town went indoors. Police took the place of the communal adult supervision that the pool had provided. Walmart became a spot to socialize. Opiates, the most private and selfish of drugs, moved in and made easy work of a landscape stripped of any communal girding. Kids used to get together for beers and bonfires by the river and talk all night. Bonfires seemed to fade away once the pills came around. The factories and the shops in Chillicothe Street were replaced by the clinics David Proctor pioneered, which found cheap space in the town's abandoned buildings. Pill mills were about the only locally owned businesses to open. By the new millennium, Purdue Pharma's promotion of OxyContin and the crusade to liberalize opiate prescribing were seeing their first noxious effects across southern Ohio, West Virginia, and eastern Kentucky. Portsmouth for a while had a pill mill for every 1,800 residents. My daughter was addicted, said Lisa Roberts, the city's public health nurse. A judge's kid became addicted. A mayor's kid became addicted. A police chief's kid got addicted. The kids who came from excellent families got addicted. It seemed like an evil lottery, a massive brainwashing. One by one, people succumbed. After a while, Roberts could recognize the look, say, in an old friend she hadn't seen for a while. They're coming over to your house with these big, elaborate stories to get money off you, she said. It's like watching people being picked off one by one by one. Slaves to the morphine molecule, the generation born into the town's decline set about tearing Portsmouth apart. You could see them trudging like zombies along Highway 52, which ran through Portsmouth on missions to placate the molecule. They ripped air conditioners out of houses for the copper wire inside. They stole manhole covers. They took large spools of copper wire from behind the school district office. They stole their children's Christmas presents. Until finally, alone down in the Ohio River, Portsmouth became a kind of junkie kingdom, and pills became currency, more valuable than cash. To a degree unlike any other town in America, a raging, full-blown OxyContin economy developed. DVDs, refrigerators, dentist visits, cable TV installation, Tide detergent, tools, clothes, and children's school supplies. Pills bought them all in Portsmouth, Ohio. Among the first local entrepreneurs to emerge was Mary Ann Henson, a pretty blonde woman who grew up middle class. Her adopted parents cherished her and were very religious. She didn't recall so much as a beer in her refrigerator growing up. She was a cheerleader at East Portsmouth High School, and in the fall of 1990 she was the school's homecoming queen. It was a bittersweet moment, as nobody knew she was 2 months pregnant. She started using pills not long after leaving home with her newborn daughter at the end of her senior year. "I thought I knew everything," she said. "I was 18. Mary Ann ended up strung out on welfare with food stamps and a Medicaid health insurance card. For a while she had a boyfriend who broke into pharmacies with a group of friends. Her boyfriend went to prison and Mary Ann was strapped for cash. One day a friend asked, "Hun, ain't you been to the doctor?" The woman took her to a doctor named John Lilly. Lilly had followed David Proctor's lead and opened the area's second pain clinic. Lilly was in downtown Portsmouth. His clinic line stretched around the block. Lilly asked Mary Ann to lift one knee and then the other, and the visit was over. He prescribed her a month's worth of Lorcet and Xanax. Mary Ann gave half the pills to the woman who paid for her visit and kept half. The woman then took her across the river to David Proctor for the same charade. Mary Ann sold her pills and a business was formed. She began going to Lilly and Proctor. Pill abuse was a minor subculture back then. Abusing Vicodin or Lortab was hard work. They contained only small doses of opiates and included acetaminophen or Tylenol to discourage their abuse. People who used them usually developed serious liver problems from the acetaminophen, but they didn't often overdose on the weaker pills. Once Oxycontin arrived, however, it went from people strung out on dope to people strung out and dying on dope, said one Portsmouth addict who by then was taking so many Lortabs that he permanently damaged his liver. In Portsmouth, Oxycontin did something else. It turned pill scamming into a big business for the town's generation of decline. Mary Ann brought the MRI results of a person with a sprained lumbar. She scanned the pages into a computer and used the MRI repeatedly, changing the name on it over and over. Next, she recruited street addicts. She paid them to go to the doctor, each armed with that MRI and their names. The docks of Portsmouth charged $250 cash per visit. In time, Mary Ann was driving several addicts at a time to one clinic one day and another group of addicts to another clinic the next, waiting while they got their prescriptions. Usually, each addict left the clinic with scripts for 90 80-milligram Oxycontins, 3 a day for a month. The doctor also prescribed 120 generic oxycodone 30-milligram pills and 90 Xanax bars. Mary Ann took half of the haul in exchange for driving the addict to the clinic and paying the $250 doctor's fee. This became a classic business model in Portsmouth and elsewhere. Thousands of people procured dope and made money this way. The weak link in this pill scam was pharmacists. Many local Portsmouth pharmacists soon caught on and wouldn't fill prescriptions from notorious clinics. So addicts crowded into cars driven by dealers like Mary Ann and set off rummaging through rural towns for hours looking for willing pharmacists. The whole time they talked about dope like gold miners, about all they were going to do with their pills this time. This time, they vowed, they weren't going to use them. Rather, they were going to sell them and accumulate some cash. Then they would be the ones to drive junkies to clinics and pay their visits. Those dreams evaporated on the long road home as they snorted or injected their pills and were left again with nothing. Once a pharmacist was found, another problem presented itself: how to pay for the prescription. The price of each patient's prescribed drugs was between $800 and $1,200. Paying cash was certainly an option, but for junkies, and even for dealers with more discipline, coming up with that kind of money was hard. And so the Medicaid card entered our story. The card provides health insurance through Medicaid, and part of that insurance pays for medicine, whatever pills a doctor deems that the insured patient needs. Among those who receive Medicaid cards are people on state welfare or on a federal disability program known as SSI, Supplemental Security Income. In Scioto County, annual SSI applicants almost doubled in the decade ending 2008. From 870 to 1600, an untrained observer of Portsmouth's bleak economic landscape might have understood. Jobs, after all, were scarce. People needed money, and that check helped. And that was true, but by then pills and pain clinics had altered the classic welfare calculus. It wasn't the monthly SSI check people cared so much about. Rather, they wanted the Medicaid card that came with it. If you could get a prescription from a willing doctor, and Portsmouth had plenty of those, the Medicaid health insurance cards paid for that prescription every month. With a $3 Medicaid copay, therefore, an addict got pills priced at $1,000, with the difference paid for by U.S. and state taxpayers. A user could turn around and sell those pills, obtained for that $3 copay, for as much as $10,000 on the street. Combined with pill mills, the Medicaid card scam allowed prolific quantities of prescription medication to hit the streets. The more pills that sloshed around the region, the more people grew addicted, and the bigger the business grew, and the more people died. The oxy-black market might never have spread and deepened so quickly had addicts been forced to pay for all those pills with cash at market prices. More isolated parts of Appalachia had other stories to tell about OxyContin, stories not connected to pill mills and just as related to economic decline and thus to SSI and Medicaid cards. In hilly Floyd County, Kentucky, 100 miles south of Portsmouth, the story had to do with mining. When the deep mines were working years ago, Floyd County had a lot of jobs. A man would work down in the mines for 20 years, pay into his disability, a federal program known as Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI, and be out of the mines with black lung by age 45 with a monthly check large enough to support a family. That became a life strategy in eastern Kentucky. By then the deep mines closed. But when the deep mines closed, strip mines took their place, using far fewer workers. Those who worked weren't as easily injured. They didn't qualify for workers' compensation. As jobs disappeared, so did the disability income people could receive. Eventually, entire families grew up on SSI, which paid only a few $100s a month. SSI, however, did come with a Medicaid card, and that made all the difference when OxyContin appeared. 20 years ago, they were drawing SSDI and full workers' comp, say $1,800 a month, said Brent Turner, the Commonwealth prosecutor for that part of eastern Kentucky, whose career began in 2000 just as OxyContin became a business for impoverished families across Appalachia. The checks were higher because they'd go work in the mines and pay into their SSDI disability. Now we've got people who aren't working, are drawing SSI, maybe $500 a month. We've got people who have kids and wives and the whole family trying to survive on $500. I'm not making excuses for them. Many haven't had a job, but it is what it is. When you don't work and never have had a job or paid into the system, you don't qualify for much. We have boatloads of people who qualify only for SSI. You wouldn't believe the number of people we see 20 or 30 years old, have never had a job and are drawing checks since they were teenagers. That was one of the driving factors when pills exploded. We can talk morally all day long, but if you're drawing $500 a month and you have a Medicaid card that allows you to get a monthly supply of pills worth several $1,000s, you're going to sell your pills. As the pain revolution took hold, decent family docs were real liberal about prescribing them, Turner said. You have the easy availability of all those narcotics, and you put it all together and they just exploded. When it comes to pills, it's the aggregation of all those small-time people is what's killing everybody. If the only people we incarcerate are Scarface, we won't incarcerate anybody. It's a cultural thing and everybody's doing it. Much like the Jalisco heroin system, OxyContin didn't have kingpins. Instead, the market was moved by a bunch of small-time operators relying on newly relaxed attitudes regarding pain pill prescribing, a new pill with a huge whack of dope, and the Medicaid card. Medicaid cards had been around for years. With OxyContin, they became licenses to print money. Have a good day, friends.